All right. Okay. Here we are live. Welcome to 100 for Trees. Um, we are here today doing our first interview, and I'm so sorry. I'm looking at my phone trying to make sure that I get all of this connected at the same time. So if it's, we are just trying to make sure it gets connected. I'm not seeing it live yet. It says it is. Okay. Hopefully, there we go. It's working. All right. So here we go. Okay. Welcome to 100 for Trees, y'all. I am Suzanne. I'm the founder of 100 for Trees, and this is where we run and we raise money and funds and awareness to plant trees. And so right now we're actually in the middle of our 10 by 10. We're on day 8 today, day 8. And this is where we run 10 miles a day, 10 days in a row. And at the end of that, we total 100 miles. And by then, we hope that we've raised enough money to plant 100 trees. We did this every single month last year. And so we totaled 12 months last year, 1,200 miles. And we're doing the same thing again this year. So we are on our first month of this year, and we are so excited that we get to have Kylie Aldaz with us today. She is an ultra runner, and I mean ultra runner, y'all, like 250 miles. So she's also a coach, and she's a very passionate person. So we wanted to bring her on and share some of her experiences and her journey. And so I'm very happy that everybody's here and can't wait to share her with you. We're going to bring her in right now, coach and ultra runner, Kylie Aldaz. Hi, Kylie. How are you?
Hi, Suzanne. I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, thank you so much for making the time to be here. Y'all, Kylie is so busy. There's actually a waiting list for her. So she has been very generous to give us a couple of minutes of time here. So we're going to use that and we're going to jump straight in there if that's okay with you, Kylie.
Absolutely. I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay. So Kylie is a coach, as I mentioned, and an ultra runner. She also is a mommy of some furry puppies. I think they're Australian Shepherds, right?
2 Australian Shepherds, yep, and then my boyfriend has a Cocker Spaniel, so we have a blended mix of 3 dogs.
That's awesome. I like to bring that up because I find animals to be just so therapeutic and they have little souls. So I think that's awesome. So I wanted to bring that up. She's a furry mama. And with that, we're just going to kind of jump right into it. So, Kylie, you have had an amazing journey, and it is one that sounds like there were some obstacles and challenges that may have started it off, but you have been able to be like an alchemist and take those situations, turn them around, and use them for the benefit out into the world to help a lot of people. So I was wondering if you could just, in your own words, share a little bit of that journey with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh boy, I don't even know where to begin.
Well, you started
So
off, you actually weren't a runner, right?
yeah. So in high school, I was not a runner. I did swimming and volleyball, but I was never really good at anything. I never made a varsity team. I was a very average athlete. I just kind of was doing it because all my friends were doing it, and yeah, never. I hated running. I hated having to run the mile in PE, and I know that's a very cliche thing that a lot of us runners experienced when we were growing up, but I really started running. I went through a pretty dark chapter of my life, overcame a pretty serious drug addiction that lasted a few years. I lost my mom, and actually it's ironic that we're meeting today because today's her anniversary of the day that she died 15 years ago. So I'm feeling her presence with me a lot right now. But I, through her, the grieving of her, and then I was in a pretty serious car accident that resulted in some legal trouble because I had been drinking and driving the week after my mom died. So I through that dark chapter, I just needed a way to cope with emotions and feelings and everything I was going through, and that's really how I found running. And I found it just as a way. I started out running just like a half mile down the street and back to my dad's house at the time, and it just blossomed into what it is today. And I love the trail running community in particular, and that's really how I found these races and these communities, and it's been pretty amazing to be on this journey.
So you were actually a pacer whenever you first started. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. So I used to work at the YMCA, and I was an aquatics director at the time, and one of my water fitness instructors, she told me she was running a 100-mile race in Leadville, and I'm actually wearing my Leadville sweatshirt today. But I was like, "What do you mean? You're going to run 100 miles? Like how many days? All the typical questions
Right.
everyone asks you." And she's like, "Yeah, I'd love for you to come pace me." And so I actually trained with her that summer up in Leadville. And I just fell in love with the race and in love with trail running. And so I went to pace her and crew her that year at the Leadville 100. And I think just being in that, I just was completely engulfed in that atmosphere and that environment. And I was so inspired. And I had it on my bucket list after she ran. I was like, I want to run this race in the next 5 years. And unfortunately, because of COVID, I was supposed to run it COVID year in 2020, which would have been the 5 years that I had as a goal. But I ran it in the year after. And yeah, it was an absolutely amazing journey and just kind of brought my running journey full circle from where it began.
That's amazing. Just even one of those elements you spoke of, we could dive into for like an hour. So thank you so much for sharing. I want to send out some really good vibes to you today, especially with the anniversary of your mom. So thank you for sharing that and being here. I appreciate that. So you came into running, and now you are this ultra runner. So it's not even just kind of running, it's ultra runner. You've got to tell me something about what goes on when you're doing the 250 milers. Can you share just like a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I ran Cocodona 250 in 2022, so 2 years ago. And it was really for me. So yeah, it's a 250-mile foot race here in Arizona where I live, a point to point. So it started north of Phoenix and ended in Flagstaff, Arizona. So super rugged terrain, up and down mountains, through the deserts. Pretty incredible. But I chose to run that race. I was going through another chapter of life, as we all do, and it was a time in my life where I needed really undistracted time to think. And I was like, running 250 miles, I'm going to have tons of time to not be distracted from work and phone and everything else, and really just be able to be on the trail and spend time reflecting and a little bit of some self-discovery as I entered a new chapter of my life at that time. And that's exactly what I got. I experienced every emotion. It took me 100 hours. So I experienced every emotion within those 100 hours. And I came out a completely different person. And for me, one of the biggest lessons was just being grateful for where we're at in our life. And I've been through some really dark times, and I came out on the other side. And I'm big with Buddhism too, and I think the biggest message is just going down a path of enlightenment from suffering, like knowing that the suffering and the pain is going to end eventually. And I kept thinking of that during the 250-mile race. Like, there is an end in sight. I know I'm going to finish this race. I never had a thought of quitting. And I made it to the finish line, and yeah, definitely came out a different person. And I'm super grateful for the experience.
Oh, wow. That's a great metaphor for life. As you were just speaking, you were saying that you're in the struggle, but yet you're able to be in it at the moment and be present, but go, okay, this isn't going to last forever. This too shall pass, almost. And can you kind of, before we move on to the next section, can you kind of walk me through when you're in a dark moment in a race? What gets you to that thinking of, hey, it's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. This is going to end. How do you make that leap? Because there's a little bit of a leap in there. Not everybody makes it. So
Yeah.
what are you doing to get to that place?
I mean, you touched on it, just knowing that there is an end in sight, and that pain is temporary. And that is, a metaphor for not only racing, but life as well. Like, we go through dark times, but they're always followed by something positive or a high time. And so I think for me, like just getting through that pain cave and just trying to like ride it out. I try to run my races without getting too high or too low and just trying to like ride the wave. And it's always interesting anytime I finish a race, whatever the distance is, like I'll wake up the next day and I'm like, wow, that went by so fast. And in the moment, it felt like it was so long. Every minute just went by so slow. But that's also why I like to run and race as well, is life is just so short. We always look back and we're like, oh my gosh, last year just flew by. And when you're running, I mean, those 100 hours went by so slow. And so it was a good thing for me to realize, like, just life is so precious, but in those moments it goes by so slow, and I like that, because I don't want life to pass by before I'm able to accomplish everything. And so I'm really able to slow down and reflect and stay present, and I don't get that every moment of every day outside of running.
I could totally relate to that. You had mentioned that whenever we spoke earlier, you had said that you have peace whenever you're in nature, and time usually goes by so fast. But whenever you're running, it's very slow, and it's about being present, and you feel like you connect. And I think that's beautiful. So you were literally in nature, in mountains and the terrain. Do you know what the elevation changes were? Do you happen to remember that?
Cocodona I think it was about 35,000 feet of elevation just gain over the 250 miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty impressive.
It was a big one. I don't know. I'm not ready for another one yet, though, but
it's a journey. You never know. That might be on the horizon for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you also help other people, having the experience that you've had throughout your life, in your short life. You have had enough experience that brings a whole lot to the coaching world and to the coaching space. And I know that you had mentioned earlier you're on. There's actually a wait list for you, which I can see why. And you've got some great people that you coach. I found Waddle Runner is what is it? Waddle Runner.
Michelle.
Michelle
is her actual name. Waddell. I think it's Waddell, but it's the actual town that she lives in. But I think people definitely know her as Waddell Running Lady. But yeah, her name is. I think it's Waddell. She'll text me. I'm sure she's listening, and text me if I'm saying it wrong. But yeah, her name's Michelle.
Okay. Well, Michelle, you're awesome.
She is.
We enjoy watching you. Keep doing what you're doing. And then you have Chris also, and that's actually how I found you. Chris gave you a shout out. And I was like, whoa, who's this Kylie chick? And then I just dove down and I was like, wow. So you've got some incredible people that you coach. Tell me about this couch to 50K kind of thing that you do, because that's pretty amazing to get. That's a lot of mindset. That's a lot of transformation going on. That's not about running, really. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So couch to 50K is kind of a phrase I've coined, and that's really where my journey began. Really, I mean, couch to 5K is what they say, but I think everyone thinks that like 5K is the first step, and I'm like, no, you are capable of doing a 50K. So for those that don't know, 50K is like a 31.5 mile race, typically on the trails. So it's harder than just running down a road for 31 miles. And couch to 50K is a journey there's small steps and small goals within that couch to 50K, but it's really a mindset and a lifestyle that you are capable of so much. And you might think that 31 miles sounds impossible, but it's not. And so I really encourage my athletes when they come to me and they're brand new. I have a whole handful of athletes that are brand new and still haven't gotten to that 50K level yet. But seeing a community and having access to myself and all of the athletes, it's really a community. It's not just about the running. And there's other pieces as well. It's mindset and visualization training and fueling and all of that. But knowing that you're capable of so much more than you think you are, and to keep dreaming, and nothing's impossible, because if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I thought I'd ever run 100 miles, let alone 250, I would have laughed right in your face. So it's just a mindset shift for sure, to, you know, instill that confidence in yourself that you can do anything you set your mind to. And I think the really powerful thing is, you know, I was out at a race this weekend, crewing Michelle, who we were talking about, one of my athletes. She was running the 60K, and my boyfriend Matt, who was running the 100K. It's just cool to see everyone out there cheering you on, whether you're first or last or anywhere in between. Like, everyone's out there suffering the same amount and doing the same thing and crossing that same finish line. No one's thinking about the time or the place that you got or your pace or anything like that. It was a journey. And it's just really incredible to see. And honestly, some days I like being a coach more than an athlete myself, just because I'm so inspired by the group I'm fortunate enough to train and to coach. And yeah, it's definitely an incredible community that we've built at Deserts Peak.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned that. And we'll go back to mindset in just a second, but I just want to tap on this. The ultra community is an amazing community. And I love that you mentioned that, because when I did my first ultra, it was a 50K. And I remember being in the environment, and nobody asked about time. Nobody asked about your last race even, really. It was like, just finish. Just finish. Don't quit. Can I help you? Do you need anything? Are you eating? Are you drinking? Do you need a goo pack? You know, it's, you know, or whatever. It was, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is like, I want to do whatever these people are doing. I want to be around them a lot more. And so whenever you had mentioned, actually, in our first visit, that when you were a pacer, you had noticed that, and you were in the environment and you thought, this is great. I want to be a part of it. And so you came into it, you got to look around and sort of take it all in. And now here you are ushering people into that. You're also running it, but there's a big passionate part of you that I'm hearing that is like, hey, let me open the door, y'all. Come look at this ultra community here, because people don't understand. It's a community. It's really different. And speaking of the mindset, what do you, okay, so every one of your clients probably starts off differently, but could you give us an example of what is something that has to do with mindset that sort of gets people to kind of like snap up for a minute, or maybe breaks through that, a little bit of that barrier of their negative self-talk?
Yeah. So I think, number one, I think all trail runners have something in common. And I'm not saying that everyone's coming from addiction or you know, challenging time of their life, but I think we all have something in common to where we are able to take suffering and change it into that enlightenment, like I had talked about earlier. And so I think the most powerful thing with visualization, and something that I talk to all my athletes about, especially as we're building up to races, is to remember your why. Why, like WHY. Why are you out here? Like, we are putting in work. We are the everyday athletes, not getting paid to do this. This is not my job. And, you know, myself included, I'm an everyday athlete. I'm out there putting in the work just as much as my athletes. And when I get to that point in a race, and I share this with my athletes, like, you got to remember your why. Why are you out there doing this? You know, it might be for yourself, your family, whatever that strong reason is behind it. Pull from that when times get difficult, because oftentimes that why is so much stronger than any pain that you're feeling. And so that's the biggest thing when things get tough, you know, outside of what we talked about already, just knowing that pain is temporary, and your low moments are going to be followed by a high moment, but remember your why. And I always encourage my athletes to think of a mantra. So whatever that little phrases that you can repeat to yourself when times get hard. And I myself do it as well. I'll write it on my hand or something like that, just so I can look down and like, oh yeah, that's why I'm out here doing it. And, you know, it's always different. Every race that I go into, I have, sometimes it's a similar why, but I'll have a different mantra. And it's just wherever I'm at in my life that's pulling me to be inspired and pulling me to get out there every day and put in that hard work that we're all out there doing.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And yes, we are the everyday athlete. That's great. Would you mind sharing an example of one of your mantras? I love that. That's that's great. I love it. Would you mind sharing one of them?
Yeah, I think for me it's and I know it sounds so cliche, but like one step at a time. Especially in that 250-mile race, it was point to point. And so I kept thinking like every step forward is a step closer to the finish line. I might be going slow, I might be going fast, but every step I take is a step closer to that finish line. And so just that relentless forward progress as well is important to remember, and one of my powerful mantras I try to take with me.
That is powerful. Relentless forward progress. That's
Yeah,
great. I love that word, relentless.
me too.
Well, Kylie, you have been great today. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who's listening. Susanna, I see you on there. Susanna is such a strong supporter. She's a tree lover too. So,
Oh,
but I just want to thank anyone who is listening right now. We would greatly appreciate that. And Kylie, I especially want to thank you. I know you're very busy, like I mentioned before. There's a wait list, actually, ladies and gentlemen, to get to her. So her generosity of coming on here, we greatly appreciate. And we're going to wrap up. And keep in mind, we've been dropping in the banners below how to get in contact with her. I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we're going to let people, or actually, we'll start it off with, do you want to let people know where to find you besides the banners here, or do you want to just go over the banners again, maybe?
yeah. I mean, I think I'm most my biggest one is probably on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Kylie K Run _AZ. Or you can follow my coaching, and I always post all my athletes pages and reels and things that they're posting. And that's at desert _2 peak _coaching. Or you can find me at my website, deserttopeakcoaching.com, and submit a request there to if you're interested in joining the community.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Kylie. And hey, Tom, thanks for helping on too. Yes, perseverance. He says, great discussion about perseverance and overcoming obstacles. Amen, Tom. Absolutely. Kylie, we could talk to you forever. But I'm going to wrap it up with this one question. If you were to be a tree, what kind of tree would you be?
I love this question. So I live in the desert. I live in Tucson, Arizona, and we are surrounded by saguaros, which are giant cactuses. And so even though it might not be formally a tree, it's the trees that I'm surrounded in down here. And so, yeah, I would say a saguaro cactus, and they're resilient and they're strong, and they can withstand any the summer heat here. I mean, it gets 115 degrees, and these trees, these saguaros are handling it, or the winter conditions. And so I think for me, it would be a saguaro cactus.
That's beautiful. It's very fitting for what we've learned about you today. Awesome. Well, Kylie, thank you so much. Everyone else, thank you so much for listening and hopping on. Please go check her out. Show her some love. She spreads love to all of her athletes. She's such a giver. So everyone out there, go give Kylie some love. Go hug a tree. And thank you all so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kylie.